Hi, welcome to the Growing Gains podcast. I'm Grace, your host. And for this session, if you have any questions for our guest Matthew, you can leave them in the comments on any of our posts on Instagram at Growing Gains Podcast, or you can also comment on our YouTube video, also called, the channel is also called the Growing Gains Podcast, because we'll be uploading the whole episode on YouTube too. So, yeah. Okay, Matthew, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name's Matthew, and we're in the same year, so we just finished the IB exam. Yeah, I also take the IB. It's really nice to be here.
Great. Okay, so in terms of money management or like financing, what do you do now?
Right now, I don't really do a lot of investment or anything like big because the recent Ukraine war is making the market very unstable and unpredictable, so I'm not very confident in it right now, so I just kind of have everything on hold.
Okay, but you used to invest a
Yeah,
lot.
not a lot, but more frequently than the average teenager, I'd say.
It's all in stocks.
Mostly, I'd also have some prior experience with cryptocurrency, but I don't recommend that. Yeah, I don't do that now.
Oh, why not?
It's very fickle. It's a very fickle market that is easily manipulated. And there are a lot of like some very influential people that almost have a monopoly over these things, and it's it depends, but it's sometimes quite a shady business. I mean, you could get very rich very quickly, but it's also very risky.
Right. For stocks, do you mind telling us what stocks did you invest in and like how you chose them?
Okay. Usually I like to do something I'm more familiar with. So I really usually just do the tech market. Because, I try to keep myself up to date with all the news and the recent up and coming, computer chips, devices releases, press releases, all that kind of stuff in the tech industry. So that I have a better understanding in the industries and the competitors, and that's how I base my investment decisions on.
And how do you pay close attention to it?
The usual news outlets, the
The usual ones.
yeah, they have pretty good information on the general trends. Like, I use Yahoo Finance just as like a day to day. I wake up, I check it. Of course, there are also the more like the niche ways, like YouTube channels. Those actually give you pretty good insight because they're not necessarily like investment channels, but then they're like more like tech news channels, and from these channels you can gain a good understanding on up and coming releases. Like those stuff usually have more an impact for these tech companies that are about to release maybe a new GPU, or they're gonna buy out another competitor, or they're gonna branch out to a different industry. So those are quite influential to where their stock prices are gonna go. So yeah.
How about Bloomberg? I always hear people using Bloomberg.
Not for me. I mean, I'm sure they have their reasons, but then Bloomberg is a very big and like general organization for like large trends in like the entire market, or they have niches, but I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I'm definitely not an expert. So I don't know how to, let's say I don't know how to interpret their information, so I just don't go into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think you brought up Hong Kong teenagers, the what the average job a Hong Kong teenager would have during the summer. So like, wait, how do I phrase this? So like, have you tried like actual jobs,
Yeah,
like paid by the hour type of stuff?
yeah. As we've discussed previously, I think off camera,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who like to do tuition gigs, like for local children, because we just graduated. We have a lot of free. Oh, not graduated. We just finished the exams. We have quite a lot of free time. We usually like to we take like tuition jobs for like primary school or even kindergarten students, and hourly wages and that stuff. And I mean, it's quite lucrative. you see like these internship offers that pay like barely above minimum wage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And compare that with like $200, $300 an hour for like a tuition. I'd say that's a pretty good opportunity, like money wise. But I'd say it's a very safe and risk free way to get some, financial security or as like some financial freedom as a teenager. Like when you say you want to compare doing tuitions with buying stocks on the internet, I'd say it's basically just a balance of the risk and the reward.
Right.
I'd say with investment, if you have like a considerable amount of money you already have lying around, maybe you have saved up your pocket change or you saved up like red packet money, you can do some pretty amazing things in the stock market that would give you a lot of money real quick. But then, of course, when it comes to stock, there is inherent risk. And you have to consider that risk because it's not just free money. It's not always 100% U-turn profit. There is the inevitability of loss and losing money in the stock market. And this risk is not present for tuitions. You do that job, you get paid by the hour. It's not like you teach, like you sunk a lot of time in it and you won't get anything in return. That's not the case for tuition, right? But that is the case for stocks. You can think about a stock, you can evaluate it, you can weigh your choices for like weeks, and when you finally do buy it, it can just dip and then you can lose like 50%, and that's always a possibility. And that's kind of why I don't think a lot of people like to do stocks, especially when you don't have a good understanding. I mean, as teenagers, I wouldn't say any of us have any good understanding in the stock market. It's a lot of mathematics, a lot of too many factors for you to just consider. So I'd say I think it's smart to do tuition, right? It's safe, it's very safe, and it's good. It's good fun too. You get to refresh on your knowledge, and it's a good way to spend your time after your exams.
Yeah. And like, so I want to ask more because like stocks and stuff, it's very demanding. So how did you get started? Like, where did you learn how to do all of this?
For me, at least I'm lucky to have a family that's kind of supportive. So when I first started, I didn't know anything about the stock market. I was keeping up on the news, like tech news as always, because I'm kind of like interested in the industry, even without the stocks. So I saw a company that had quite some potential coming back in the semiconductor business.
So you had been paying attention.
I have been paying attention to the market, yes, but it wasn't necessarily for the stocks. It's just like curiosity and keeping up. And I saw like a potential there, and I asked my dad to invest actually using his money. I was like, I think this is a up and coming company, and you can try investing in this. So he like spent a little bit of money on that. It wasn't a lot, and after like a few months, it turned double, almost double, and I was like, I think it's a good time to sell. And then he sold it, and then he gave me a bit of the profit, and that's how I started basically.
Nice. Okay, great. And do you of course have your own bank account, right? Because now you're like managing your own stocks, shares.
I wouldn't say managing. Managing is a bit professional. I just kind of, do what I do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for bank accounts, you don't really even need to be like over 18.
Yeah, you open like a linked account,
it's like
right?
a weird thing.
Yeah, with your parents, yeah.
But then you can't directly invest. You have a bank account. I think you have like a savings account. But then back then I couldn't invest myself. I have to ask my dad and do it from him.
Yeah.
Through him?
Like through with a stockbroker, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm that familiar with all the workings, but I know you can just do it on like an app.
Yeah.
I know people who like my grandparents. I know they like to do it like in person. They go to the bank and they like tell the people, buy this, or like they call their brokers or whatever.
Yeah. My mother does that too.
Yeah, but then I mean for our generation, I think you can just do it on the phone. You have pretty good options. I mean, I personally use HSBC. They have this app called Easy Invest. And you can just do it there. You don't need like Futou Ngao Ngao or whatever. Those are, I haven't used those. I think they work, but I'm not sure.
I heard those have like really high transaction fees, and like you have to have like a certain amount of money deposited in there before you can start investing. So maybe the starting cost is really high for us teenagers, so not a lot of people use it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say that's kind of. I mean, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have to
yeah.
check it out later.
Yeah, I've done some research because I was also recently like trying to open an online account for investing. Yeah,
Okay.
great. And on like continuing on like investing in stocks, you invest in specific companies, right? I heard, yeah. And like on the contrary, I like to at least pay attention to index funds. So which one do you think is more suitable for a teenager who's wanting to start investing?
I think the difference, at least for me, between like individual stocks and funds is that you kind of delegate your decision making to funds and the people who run the funds. If you invest in like index funds, because it's more like you let other people make the decisions for you.
Yeah.
And it's, I guess they have like these mathematical models and they have stuff that kind of evaluate the risk maybe better than you do, but then I think it's more like a safe option over the long term.
So it's like long-term investment.
Yeah, it's more like a safe, long-term, slowly growing thing. But given that I haven't invested or looked into index funds, so I don't take my word on it because I've never done that kind of research into the funds. But I think it's more like a safer approach when you don't have to, where you don't have to like keep an eye on the market in like maybe specific industries all the time. You can just kind of let it sit there and like look at the fluctuations more. So I think it's more a hands-off investment approach, but don't quote me on that. Just do your own research. I mean, it's very important to do your own research and be confident in your own decisions, because I see a lot of people who, you know, they see like these insider tips from like financial sites or like news outlets, and then this is like they have like a number and I'm gonna put my life savings into this because some random person on the internet said it's gonna double in like 2 months. It's not very smart, is it?
Yeah.
So just I think the smart thing to do for investment or any financial decision is to do your own research and feel confident about your own decisions. Because as teenagers, it's not like we hopefully depend on these investments to make a living, to feed ourselves.
Yeah.
And you can experiment more. You can learn how to do your own research, and I think that's beneficial to, you know, our own money management in the future too.
Okay, great. And also we talked about like opening bank accounts. So people who learn economics or maths in general will know that there are inflation rates, right? So if we put a certain amount of our savings into bank account, like LICE money, will it lose money?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I haven't checked how much inflation there is, but I'm pretty sure for Hong Kong banks at least, like the saving returns when you just put money in the bank account, it's so low it doesn't even cover inflation.
Yeah.
So you have to do something like, I mean, I think that's why people like buy property, right? Physical property in Hong Kong, like the housing market is so inflated. It's
saturated?
Yeah, it's no.
No.
There's a lot of demand for
property,
physical property in Hong Kong because it's a better safeguard against inflation, I'd say, rather than just having money in a bank. I'm not sure about foreign economies, but then at least for Hong Kong, I know the saving returns, like the interest rates, are awfully low. So you basically just lose your money to inflation if you put it in there for the long term.
Then what do you think for teenagers? I mean, I think most of us are putting our savings, like we hold actual cash or we're putting it in a bank account. So what do you think is a better place to put our savings in?
I mean, for teenagers, I don't think you should really worry about inflation, to be honest,
Yeah.
because it's not like you have hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars
No.
in your bank accounts that you have to consider that you're not going to have to use this money in 10 years.
Yeah.
It's more like a pocket change where you can buy fancy clothes, buy whatever you want, buy computers or whatever in like 1 or 2 years. And I think inflation wouldn't affect that purchasing power necessarily. So unless you have a lot of money that you have to keep and manage until and use until like adulthood, I wouldn't be that worried about inflation. I mean, you have a couple of $1,000s in your bank account. It's not like you're gonna lose that to inflation in like 2 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Right. And then, so you're going abroad for studying?
That's a possibility.
Yeah.
Not- I'm not saying that's a must.
Okay, so I'm definitely going abroad. I'm going to the US. So I've actually opened, is it called opened a credit card? Yeah. So, do you know, like how a credit card functions and stuff?
Not an expert. I personally don't use credit cards. I use debit cards.
Okay.
Because debit cards, you have all the the legal stuff,
Yeah.
the loan payments and the liability. To me, I think the concept of a credit card is a bit weird, where they kind of bait you into spending more than you have
Yeah.
and then racking up more in interest and in payments. And I think the fundamental difference between debit cards and credit cards is just like psychology, where people feel like they're not using their own money when you're using a credit card. When you have like, oh, I like to make all my payments at once and maybe at the end of the month when you're using a credit card, right? Because you're kind of loaning that money from the credit card company, financial institutions or banks when you're using a credit card, and then you're kind of repaying that at the end of the month. And when you don't make a timely payment, or when you don't have enough money to make that repayment, you have to have like fees and you have to have interest rates when you like kind of repay that debt, right? So for me at least, maybe there are advantages that I am not aware of. I mean, there are advantages, like they have like cashbacks, they have like merchant like discounts maybe. But then for general use, maybe like buying stuff, paying for dinner, I'd say a debit card is not that different from a credit card, and it's a safer thing when you just use your own money, and when you don't have enough money, it actually tells you that you don't spend more.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with the whole concept because I didn't really see it as an option.
Yeah.
Or I didn't really want to use a credit card, so I didn't research into that. So there might be benefits, but for me, I don't think it's necessary, I'd say.
Right. Okay, great. And moving on, do you mind sharing with us how you spend your money? So like your day-to-day expenses and how you finance them, perhaps?
Usually for transport and like meals, I usually eat at home and I don't travel that much. And if I do, my parents usually give me some pocket money for
Pocket money,
that kind
right.
of stuff.
Do you note down how much you spend each day, especially on some particular items? Like, do you have like a spreadsheet or no? No.
Oh, it's probably a dumb thing to not have one.
Yeah, because I have one and I keep track tightly.
Yeah, that sounds smart, but I
Yeah.
don't. I mean, I do keep my receipts. I have a box where I keep all my receipts, and that's basically how I monitor my spending. I mean, also, if I do buy stuff, like sometimes I buy camera gear, I buy like computer parts, electronics for my own use, then I have a record, but I don't make the record myself. I just check my phone app, my HSBC app, and it tells me how much I paid when to which merchant, and I can recognize the amount usually, because I don't buy that often. I buy like, maybe I purchase 1 or 2 things every month.
And what are they? Are they needs or wants?
Once, I'd say.
Wants, yeah.
I mean, as a teenager, it's not like anything I'd have to depend on these money for survival.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to have
Yeah.
like a family to provide the very basic needs: shelter, food, transportation, clothing. That stuff I usually don't have to pay for. So when I do spend my own money, it's usually on something that, for my own like satisfaction.
Great. Okay. And lastly, I want to ask if you pay attention. So, as apart from all the news outlets, do you pay attention to other social media sources for tips on how to manage your own money or invest in stocks and stuff like that?
Not really.
No.
I wouldn't say I keep up with like the investing news or like the tips because I don't really trust them. It's my own money
Yeah.
and I'm a logical individual. We're in Hong Kong, so all teenagers are like pretty decently educated, and I think we don't have to depend on other people to make our own investment decisions with our own money. And I think we should, it's the same thing of doing our own research and being confident in our own decisions.
But how about the technical stuff? Like stuff you have to learn, like, I don't know, like how
Like
stocks
the technical
work.
stuff, like
Yeah.
what's a fund, what's
Yeah,
a stock,
yeah,
what's
yeah,
an
yeah.
app.
So,
Yeah, then I mean those you can do some learning. You can Google, but I wouldn't say it's like education, but more just preparation. When you, yeah, I think what I was talking about just now was like the tips and like buy this stock, buy that stock, avoid this, avoid that. I mean you could take reference from it, but I wouldn't trust them completely. Just because I don't know where it's coming from. Unless you like say you work as an intern in like a financial institution.
Yeah.
Maybe you get a better grasp on where it's coming from. Who does the decision making, who does the modeling. Maybe if you have the research into it, then sure you can. If you researched this fund and you trust it, then sure, why not go ahead. But don't just see this, this is the biggest firm in the world, I'm gonna put all my money into it.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
not very
So
smart.
diversify your sources of income from a young age.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, it's probably smart to diversify
Yeah.
to manage your risk, but then just be smart and consider all your options before making decisions, I'd say. Because as teenagers, I don't think you have enough money to really do any wide diversification. You can't just spend like 1,000 here, 1,000 there.
Yeah.
On like 8 different options, right? So I'd say diversify in your options, but don't necessarily diversify in your actual investment.
Right. Okay, great. And this is last question, but a very realistic one. So, if your parents were to cut off supporting you financially for this summer, how would you get money, essentially?
In that case, I'd probably get something more stable, risk-free, as we've talked about just now. Maybe get like tuition gigs. I might even work like a part-time job somewhere. Maybe get an internship opportunity. They don't pay very well, but they pay, and it's like a guaranteed income. I probably would not invest it because there's risk, and I don't want to risk my next meal doing that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if I were to be cut off, I'd probably get employment instead of invest. Invest is more a way to grow when you have a stable, when you have security already financially and you're comfortable with what you have and you have some excess, you can basically gamble that money. It's
essentially
it's
gambling.
essentially a gamble that you can feel safer. It's not just up to chance. You can feel safer about your decisions if you do enough research into investment. So yeah.
Great. Okay. Do you want to add anything more?
Not really. I hope everyone listening has a wonderful day. Remember to drink more water. Be hydrated. It's very important. And have fun.
Yeah. And something from me is that if you're privileged or fortunate enough to have your family supporting you, I don't think you have to go around spend so much time finding actual jobs, because often, I don't know where this is going, but I'm just saying, just don't be too desperate to find your own source of income, because it will come. And instead, I think you should enjoy more time with your friends and family, because that money can't buy. And especially for a lot of us, we're going abroad for studying, luckily. So yeah, I think value your time as well. And yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, sorry for extending the podcast, but for me too, I'm not currently doing any tuition or even having any real jobs at the moment, because there is a possibility that I might be going abroad and not be seeing my friends for a very long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do agree with your point of, just spending more time with your family and friends. And, I mean, that's kind of why I do investment, because it's not a very time-consuming thing.
Passive income?
Well, it's more passive than actually working.
Yeah.
So I'd say that might be an option for all of you out there who, don't have a lot of time, but still want to try to earn a bit of money.
Yeah.
But always be aware of the risks and do your own research. That's very important, or else you're gonna not be very happy in the future.
Yeah, great. Okay, I think we can end this now. Thank you so much for listening. Again, if you have any questions or comments, you can post them under our posts or videos on YouTube and also Instagram, also with the same name, The Growing Gains Podcast. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.